You ask 100 English learners what they think their biggest weakness is, or what skill they would like to improve more than any other, and 90 of them will say speaking. Okay, there'll be 10 people that will say something else, but the vast majority of English learners really want to improve their speaking, and they don't know how. Now, it's actually relatively easy. In fact, the good news is improving your fluency is the easiest thing, the easiest skill to improve. In fact, it's the quickest skill to improve. After a few days of doing fluency practice, you feel radically different. The bad news is you lose it very quickly as well. So fluency and speaking are different to the other skills and other parts of language. So it's about the production of words. So let's have a look at when we say, okay, it's very important for you to understand the difference between speaking and fluency. Speaking is just the physicality of producing words, okay? Fluency is really a mind-body connection. So fluency is all of the process of the end result of speaking. So what happens when you speak? Well, you've got an idea in your head which you would like to communicate. So you start with an idea, okay? And then in the brain, this all happens almost instantly. It takes time to do, but it's an amount of time that you're not consciously aware of, but it's because it feels so quick, almost instantaneous, that you don't notice that all these processes are happening. But what happens in the brain is you start with an idea that you would like to communicate, and then your brain goes and finds the most appropriate words to communicate that idea, and then puts them in the correct order, and then sends the signal to the mouth, and then the mouth and the tongue physically produces the sounds that are those words. That's what happens when you speak. We often focus too much on the end result of just speaking, but it's not necessarily that. It's all of that process. So it starts in the brain and communicates it to the mouth. So what is fluency? Fluency is all of that. It's connecting all of those elements. And it's really important to improve these. So as I said, the good news is it's incredibly quick and easy to improve your fluency, but incredibly quick and easy to lose it. So speaking is like juggling. You don't need to use great effort or concentration, unlike other parts of improving aspects of your English. What is important, though, is to keep the balls moving. It's just like juggling. You just got to keep the balls moving. It's easy, but you need to keep them moving. So if you're wanting to, say, for example, improve your grammar, well, yeah, it takes time. You need to learn and you need to practice and you need to remove mistakes and things like this. But with fluency, all you need to do is start with a message in your head and communicate to the mouth and physically produce the sounds in English. That's all you need to do. Now that connection is very quickly becomes strong, but it also very quickly becomes weak and disappears if you're not practicing it. So the key about fluency is regularity, not intensity. Okay, regularity, not intensity. Okay, so the best fluency practice exercises. I'm a little bit controversial in this because I differ from most of the English teachers and most of the English teachers really, in that I think the best fluency practice that you can do is actually on your own, not with another person. So all of the fluency practice that I give for people to do is things that you can do on your own. Now, why do I think it's important to practice on your own? Well, the reason is that when you're practicing fluency on your own, you can really listen to what you're saying and think about what you're saying before you say it. That's something that you can't do with another person. You can also choose what you talk about. You can't do that with another person. Why? Because, well, it's a social situation. You need to ask questions. You need to consider the other person. You can't be selfish in that situation. And the other great thing is that if you've got anything that you don't, if there's something that you don't want, that you don't know how to say, but you want to say, then you've got more questions and doubts that you can learn. So it's a win-win situation. Fluency practice is best done on your own, okay? Now, every time I say this, you'll probably be thinking the same thing. Everybody, no exception, says, but who's going to correct me when I make a mistake? Who's going to correct my pronunciation? And I say, nobody. But that's just like in real life. So I often say, well, what would you consider the most perfect fluency, the most perfect situation in which to practice fluency? And most people will say, I don't know, speaking to an English person in England. Okay, fantastic. You're in England speaking to an English person. You make a mistake. What will they say? Nothing. Nobody is going to correct you. Nobody is going to correct you. The only situation in which somebody will correct you would be a teacher in a classroom and a teacher that corrects you, because there are many that don't. Now, if you're worried about making a mistake, then that means you can only practice speaking English in a classroom with a teacher. That's completely unpractical and unrealistic. That will not give you the results that you want. So there really is no difference between practicing fluency on your own or practicing with a person, because nobody's going to correct you. And I know this firsthand. So when I came to Spain in 2007, I had pretty good listening skills because my wife had been speaking to me in Spanish for a few months, so I could listen quite well, but I couldn't speak. I'd never spoken in Spanish. And I knew that I quickly had to practice speaking because, as I said, living in the country is not the solution. It's only an opportunity. And I know plenty of people that live here and they can't speak Spanish. And I know plenty of Spanish or other people living in England that don't improve their language skills because they didn't make the most of the opportunity. It's an opportunity only, not a solution. So I knew that I had to improve my fluency skills in Spanish. So I spoke to my best friend and I said, look, please, if I make a mistake when I speak in Spanish, please correct me. And my friend said, yeah, of course. Yeah, don't worry about it. I'll correct you. I will. They never corrected me. Never. But it's normal. Nobody's going to correct you. Why? Because, well, it's a social situation. You can't be stopping the person every sentence and correcting their grammar. People don't do that. It's not the situation to do that in. So nobody is going to correct you. So even if you're in England, amongst native speakers, you're going to be responsible for correcting yourself. And that's no different from speaking on your own in the country where you're living now. There's no difference at all. In fact, there are only benefits because you can decide what to talk about. You don't have to consider the other person, so you can speak more and you can write down questions and doubts that you can learn later. So it's win-win. Speaking on your own, practicing fluency on your own is the best. So let me give you the few techniques that you can do to do this. So the few practice exercises that I recommend. The first one is really, really simple. There's no excuse not to do this, and that's reading out loud. Reading out loud is very, very good for not for producing the message, because this isn't your message. It's written. So you're only reproducing a message from somebody else. So you don't start with the message like in social situations. But what this is very, very good for is the physicality of producing English words. So often what's very difficult for non-native speakers is the physicality. So it's difficult to put your tongue in the right position and connect consonants and things like this, all the little things that you don't consider in your language. Reading out loud is super easy. There's no excuse not to do this. All you do, take some text and read out loud. Now, I recommend maximum 5 minutes of fluency practice per session. I recommend 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at lunch, 5 minutes in the evening. That's what I did in Spanish. And it was, in a few days, I felt different. In 2 weeks, I was fantastic. Reading out loud. Take some text in English, read it out loud. Next one is what I call the running commentary. So a running commentary is, I normally did this at lunchtime. So what you do is you talk about what you're doing. So typically what I did is I spoke about what I had done in the morning or the day before, what I'm doing now or today, and what I'm doing tomorrow or the weekend or next week or next month. And I just speak. I speak. Now, when you're doing this and the other fluency practice exercises, pay attention to what you're saying. Think about what you're saying. This is something that you can do on your own that you can't do with another person. Think about what you're saying. Ask yourself, is this correct or is it a mistake? If you're not sure, write it down. Learn it later. You can post it in the questions and doubts space in the how-to community. You can bring it to the masterclass to ask me, but write it down. Imagine you're not sure if it's the correct preposition. Write it down. After 5 minutes, you should have 5 questions and doubts that you can bring to class to help you learn as well. And the best thing about those things is that they're relevant for you and only you because you wanted to say them, but you didn't know how to say them. So you talk about what you did in the past, what you're doing now, what you're doing later or tomorrow. This is very good because you're going to be practicing a variety of tenses, past tenses, present tenses, future tenses. So it's very, very good. The next one is looking at imaginary conversation. So this is more of a social situation. This is the one that sometimes feels strange for people. So what you do is have an imaginary conversation with a person. Now, I recommend somebody that you know, maybe your best friend. This is what I did. So I imagined I was speaking to my best friend in Spain. Now, it's easy to do it that way because, well, I know what he's going to say because he's my friend. So I know what his answers would be and how I would respond. And then anything that you don't know how to say, write it down. And that's another question and doubt. Next one, general observation. This is great for vocabulary. So what you do is you look at the room in front of you, or if you're on a train going to work, you look around on the train. You're in a car, what's around you on the roads and on the side of the roads. Anywhere where you are, you've got lots and lots of vocabulary all around you. And so I said at the beginning of this course that everything you need in English is in front of your eyes, but for some reason you can't see it because you're ignoring all these learning opportunities. You've got English all around you, in front of you right now. Write down a list of vocabulary that you can see here and say it, okay? So you say what you can see. Nouns, okay? Then you can use verbs. What verbs can you associate with those nouns? What verbs do those nouns do? And then you can create short sentences with them. So you're manipulating the language. You can put it in the negative or the interrogative. Then you can start to introduce things like adjectives. You just play with the language that is in front of you right now. So have a look in the room where you are now. Wherever you are, there'll be something that you can learn, okay? Nouns, verbs associated with those nouns, short phrases, tenses, put it in the past, negative, interrogative. Play with the language. You've got it in front of you right now. Have a look, use it. General observation. The next one is one that almost nobody does, but I highly recommend it, which is call a stranger. So, well, with this, just as the name suggests, you pick up the phone and call a number at random in the country of your choice. And when the person picks up, you say, "Hi, my name is Adam. Would you like to speak to me in English? Because I'd like to practice my English." Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking I'm completely crazy right now, but it's really good exercise. Now, why is it good? Well, because it's scary. It's really, really scary. The last thing you want to do is dial that number and say that sentence. Everything in your body is telling you not to do it. And that's extremely good for confidence because you need to feel confident speaking in English. Is it a crazy situation? Of course it is. Will most people say no? Yes, they will say no. But that's good because you learn rejection, you learn humiliation, and you realize that there's no consequences. You don't know the person. Nothing's going to happen. You put the phone down and that's it. But by doing something uncomfortable that feels strange, alien, everything in your body is telling you, don't do this, and you do it, it's extremely good for motivation, self-discipline, and lots of other very, very important skills. So calling a stranger. A more accessible one that you can do is you can call, a computer hardware store, for example, in another country, and you start asking them about your laptop or what new laptop could they recommend or something. It doesn't matter what you speak about. It doesn't matter what shop you call. The good thing about those situations is that if you're just calling a stranger, the person will say, no. and put the phone down. But these people, because they work in a shop, they have to attend to you. So they will say yes, and they'll speak to you. They'll answer all your questions, and they'll be very, very, very friendly. Okay, so that's the easier option. Now, I would say if you do the call a stranger, you'll be surprised how many people say yes. Most will say no, but some people, and it happened to me, do say yes, and you have a really interesting conversation with, I don't know, somebody walking down the street going to work, or a retired old lady, and you have some people say, "Okay, yeah, why not?" Because it's a strange situation, and you have some interesting conversations. So I recommend you do this. I motivate you to do this. It will feel strange, even if you only do it once, and the person says no. That will be a fantastic win for you. Try it. Anyway, write down these. If you need to watch the video again, do, because these are very, very important. Reading out loud, running commentary, imaginary conversation, general observation, and calling a stranger. These are the 5 best fluency practice exercises that you can do in English. 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at lunch, 5 minutes in the evening. No more. Do them every day and see how you feel in 3 days. After 1 week, you'll feel fantastic.